G'day you mob, welcome to this episode of Pete vs Plants. Today we are finally biting the bullet and doing a full tour of my entire collection here, at least in the lounge room. I'm going to break this up into multiple parts because, as you can probably tell, there are hundreds of plants behind me here, and I feel like if I make this a single video, one, you're probably going to fall asleep, two, you're going to get sick of my voice, and three, it's going to be really long. So yeah, this is going to be part one, and there will probably be 2 or 3 other parts. Before we get into it, if you want to see the setup of these shelves, so the lights, the shelves, the fans, how everything works, besides the plants obviously as a tour, check the video out above, and yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so this is shelf number 1 up the back here, and these are my sort of less rare, more common plants. So up the top here, we'll start at the top, I have a spider plant, as you can tell, and this is the one with the variegation on the outside and the green on the inside. I've had this one for a while, and it has just been pushing out loads of flowers and pups, and I've just kind of decided to chuck it up here. It gets a bit of light when the curtains here are open, and I've just closed them to make filming a little easier. And yeah, it's growing down, and you can see there's pups coming out of other pups, which is also a really kind of interesting phenomenon with this plant. But yeah, I'm an absolute fan of spider plants. I have next to it a basket of Monstera silvicana. So this as well I've had for quite a while. I originally had this in my closet jungle. So I had a closet that I set up as a little grow area with a light and a fan and all that sort of jazz. I will link a video above here for you to go and check out. The issue that I had with this thing is that it was sitting in front of a fan and it kept drying out really quickly. And so pretty quickly, all the leaves at the base of the vine started to die off. And so I think I ended up kind of chopping all those leaves out and then chopping it back and then starting it again. And since then, over the last probably 3 or 4 months, it has grown like crazy. This is probably one of my fastest growing baskets. So I've got a few of them, which you'll get to see in this series, but this one has definitely just gone off like a frog in a sock. And yeah, I really like this plant. It's interesting to see that often you'll hear, if you let things trail, the leaves will get smaller and they won't develop as much. I haven't really found that to be the case with silvicana as much as with other things like Adansonii. And in fact, say like this leaf, it's got 2 fenestrations here. There's one higher up on a different vine that's got a fenestration as well. There's a smaller one here with 2 fenestrations, whereas further up, these leaves, at least by and large, from what I can see, well, maybe not, maybe there's a tiny one here, aren't fenestrated. So it is interesting seeing the development of this plant. Silvicana is another one of these plants that is just really cool, really easy going. This is just the standard form, not the El Salvador, so it's not as big. You can grow it up a pole. It will size up a bit, but I think the leaves will only get about hand size compared to something like El Salvador. I'm not sure, there is some damage on this plant. I see this from time to time, and I think it might be spider mites, though. I've released beneficial bugs into the collection multiple times, and I've also sprayed things down, so yeah, I'm not sure if that was bug damage and then they've died, but by and large, this plant seems to be thriving, doing really well. And the only time I really notice leaves kind of browning off, like the tips here, is when it's underwatered. So I usually just come over and kind of lift it up, and if I can feel that it's pretty light, and if I feel the top too, and it's pretty dry, I'll just give it a thorough drenching. And yeah, seems to be doing okay. Some new growth coming out here too at the top. And you can see, yeah, from the underwatering that I previously mentioned, there was a little bit of damage here. With these kinds of plants in baskets, I don't try and let them get underwatered because they will brown off. The leaves at the base of the vines will start dying. It won't just wilt like Epipremnum and the other pothos. It will start carking it. Okay, so now let's get into the top shelf here. And there were a few other plants that were here, but they were found to have spider mites. They are, or were, or yeah, well they are, they're still alive. They're just in my shower after being sprayed. They were Alocasias. So the one at the back here is a platinum dragon Alocasia. I've forgotten the species name. I'm not sure if it's a hybrid or a species, but I will include it on screen and see if it is. New leaves just come out here. These are absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love this kind of light silvery color that goes like a gradient from the outside of the leaf to the inside into this darker green. And the veination that's dark on it too is really cool. I think this is just one of the older leaves, probably the oldest leaf on the plant that's closest to us. And I may have underwatered it, which is why it's probably browned off like this. I've noticed these spots sort of appearing on quite a few of my alocasias, and I have a feeling that it's just underwatering them sort of gets the edges to yellow up like that. So yeah, anyway, it's interesting that it's only really happened to that one. This plant's kind of really cool because it is pretty vocal. So I can see this leaf here is sort of rounding off at the edges, so that probably means it needs a bit of a drink soon. We have an Alocasia bambino here. This one was one of my first alocasias. I had the poly and the amazonica, but they got spider mites and I just chucked them because the infestation was epic on them. This one seems to always be getting spider mites, but it's pretty easy to deal with considering the size of the leaves and the number. It has been in the one leaf club for a long time. And it's the same thing with these black velvets back here. And you can probably see some sawdust on one of the black velvets there. And that was from me introducing some predatory mites into the collection. I usually start with the alocasias because that tends to be where the spider mites are. And I actually have a lot of trouble with these guys. They tend to always be in the one leaf club and be dying back, though I do seem to be able to bring them back to life. So the one behind you here, I bought as a rescue and all its leaves died, and it's since pushed out these two leaves over the last 3 months. But yeah, I kind of have a lot of trouble with these types of alocasias, these velvet leaf ones. You'll have to let me know. And it looks like, I'm not sure if this is a leaf or it's about to flower, but these things seem to flower readily, and it's pretty annoying, to be honest. They seem to always be flowering. This is a soderoid bush that I put together. So you may have seen the video, and I'll link it above, where I was using the aeroponic system to propagate soderoid. It went off. All of those propagations made it. I think all of them survived, and I just potted them up in soil to make a little bush here. I don't think it's going to trail, but I thought, I don't want 100 of these things in different pots hanging around, so I might just pot them up like this and use it as a mother plant to propagate. I have a begonia here, a glacier begonia. So I guess this is a cultivar or hybrid of some kind. I'm finding these really hard to grow beautifully. They seem to constantly be having these edges that are browning. So I'm not sure if that's a humidity issue or an intermittent watering issue. And some of them also seem to be getting patches on them. I'm not sure if you can see there. I don't know if that's drying or if it's mildew. So like mold that's growing on the leaves. This one doesn't seem to have it as bad, but there's one that I've sprayed down that was on, I think it was on the shelf, either down here or up here, and it had loads and loads of fungus patches on it. So yeah, still trying to master how to grow begonias. What else have we got? We've got an Epipremnum aureum mandula. So absolutely beautiful variegation on these plants. I am a huge fan of the mandula. I want to grow this out on a pole eventually, but yeah, I have 2 of these. There's another one that you'll see down below here, but that was ugly as for a long time and wasn't growing very quickly. I'll show you that one in a bit. So I saw this pop up at Bunnings a while back and just grabbed it and thought, I'll keep it on the shelf. Here are some more propagations here. We've got a Syngonium Wenlandii that I propagated from the mother plant, which is all the way back in the corner over there. When I first got it, I wanted to sort of practice propagating Syngonium. That was pretty easy, to be honest. I just sort of chucked it in water and it took. I have some sort of Rhipsalis. I'm not sure what this is. This is a gift from one of our old neighbors. And it was originally just, I think, a single vine that was like this long. And over the last 6 months, it has just grown. And then we have some heartleaf philodendrons at the back here too that were originally propagations. As you can probably see here, they were mid cuttings. And they have since gone off and are growing too. So yeah, that is shelf number 1. We are going to be here for a while. Okay. What else have we got? So next shelf down. I think this is a green dragon alocasia. When I bought it, it was flowering, and I chopped the flowers off in the end, and it has had just these 2 leaves. The same yellowing issue that I mentioned above with this guy has happened with this green dragon. And it's just done nothing ever since I removed the flowers. It's done absolutely 0. So that's been kind of annoying, but it seems to be holding on. We've got the Mandula pothos or Epipremnum here. There is some neon Epipremnum behind that I propagated. Again, just me practicing. when I first got into it, and I've still just got it. Green Dragon Epipremnum at the back there. This is a Monstera leechleriana, and it is a really beautiful one that I would really like to grow out up a pole. That was again just another propagation that I took a while back. I was trying to master that. I was propagating one of these I got as a basket in winter, and it was having a really shit time of rooting, and a lot of those propagations ended up wet sticks. And yeah, this is one that actually survived, and I've just sort of had sitting there in moss ever since. We've got some Hindu rope Hoya. I think it's Hoya carnosa. Hindu rope, just the standard one. I had a variegated one originally, but it ended up just rotting to bits. I think what had happened was it had snapped in the store, and when I got it home, I hadn't noticed, and when I got it home, I noticed, oh man, someone had already snapped this and broken it. So I tried to propagate it, and yeah, all of it just rotted, and I got sick of it, and the base did nothing. Some more propagations here. I think this is an Epipremnum Global Green that someone gave me as a cutting in a plant pack that I bought. You'll have to tell me. There's two types apparently, but yeah, this is one of them. It's an Epipremnum aureum variegation cultivar thing. Pictus back here, I was about to say Syngonium, but Syndapsis pictus that I propagated. And this one is, I think, some sort of devil's ivy. So yeah, again, Epipremnum aureum. These are all the propagations that I took when I first got into plants, and have just been sort of sitting here doing their thing. This was the first Monstera that I ever bought, Monstera deliciosa. And it has been so slow to recover. I ended up chopping this back to the base, and I wanted to see what it would do. So it had no leaves, it was just a chunk, and it ended up surviving, but it has been very slow to kind of recuperate and send out these leaves, and they've kind of been janky and weird ever since that happened. So that's been really interesting. Some Monstera adansonii that I propagated. Again, I've just sort of got them sitting here. I think these were from wet sticks. This is Syndapsis silverian that I got when I bought it was a Monstera Thai constellation from someone, and they threw a one-leaf cutting of this in. We have some Rhaphidophora discursiva or decursiva, I think it's decursiva, and again propagated this, turned these all into single leaf cuttings, and there are 3 of them here. I wanted to grow this up a pole, so decided to chop and prop that when I got it multiple months ago. And yeah, they've all been doing well, shooting out loads of new leaves, and I probably have to pot them up soon. We have a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma here that has been absolutely going off. Again, same thing. I had the plan of putting this on a pole, but just never did. And so it is, yeah, just going wild. And what's the last one? The last little thing in here is a Philodendron gigas that I chopped down to the base to propagate. I got this as a rescue, I think for like $5 or $10 from Bunnings, chopped it up to propagate it, and this is the base that I chopped down to probably one leaf, that tiny leaf in the back. And it had spider mites, so I sprayed it down. You can see the damage there. I'm not sure if I can get my camera in here, but there was a bit of damage there from spider mites. Ooh, and another neon aurea here as well from a propagation. So this is sort of the theme of this area. There are a lot of cheaper plants that I got when I first started getting into plants, and was like, I'm just gonna lash out on a bunch of these cheaper plants and then chop them up and learn to propagate them. If we go down to the next shelf down, and this is gonna be hard to sort of access, but I will do my best. At the back here we have, this is Philodendron gigas again. So I had one of these on a pole, and I decided to chop it up because it wasn't doing anything for ages. And you can see it's already popped. So I wonder if it's actually gonna do really well now that I've chopped it back to the base. There's 2 plants in here. Behind that, this thing over here at the end was a tiny little, I think Epipremnum pinnatum, and it's a skeleton key. And I got this as one of those terrarium plants from a local nursery, but it's just kind of weird in terms of growth. The leaves are just really thin. They don't seem to be giving me the key kind of shape, but I might need to grow that up a pole. So that's another thing that I have sort of chopped and propagated at times. I'll do the other side when we get around to it. These are 2 Monstera pinnipitatas, I think. Pinnipatitas. I'm really bad with pronouncing this one. Where is it here? So Monstera pinnati patita. Pinnati patita. They came as 2-leaf cuttings, And they, again, are one of these plants that has just grown like crazy and definitely needs a pole. I got 2 of these to grow up a pole. I just, again, haven't gotten around to chucking them on a pole. You're gonna see that theme crop up again and again. A bunch of propagations in here. The 3 that you can see here are Monstera leichleriana. I'm probably just gonna sell these. I just wanted to, again, try them out in the aeroponic system, and I've taken them out. This is a Monstera standleyana, albo variegata. This is a ZZ Raven. Again, propagated that out just to see if I could. And that was the smallest one that came from these 2 tiny little leaves underneath this leaf here, and it ended up surviving. I was kind of impressed. We have a Philodendron tenue, or tenue here. It kind of has these Anthurium veitchii vibes to it. So I was pretty keen to grow this, and the leaves get longer and longer and longer. So yeah, again, another one that I want to chuck on a pole, but I think I might propagate first so I can chuck multiple plants on a single pole. If we come around here, this is Hawaiian giant pothos that I propagated because it had stem rot and after I got it, and it seems to have lost its variegation. So it seems to have just sort of turned back into a standard green pothos. So it'll be interesting to see if the variegation comes back. The leaves that I had originally that ended up dying actually had quite a bit of variegation, but you can see it's pretty much all gone. I think this is an iceberg begonia. So I got this with the glacier one that I mentioned above. But yeah, same issue. All the edges have been browning off quite a bit. I don't know if it's a watering or a humidity thing. It'll be one of the 2. But I probably need to change the mix up that I have and make it a little denser, because I'm using aroid mix, as you can probably see down there, which is pretty chunky. And I think because it's kind of on the aroid watering regime that I have, not that it's a specific regime, but I kind of just go around and work out, it still feels a bit heavy, so I might not water it. I think it's not being able to handle that very well, so I might have to just make it a bit finer so it holds on to a bit more water. The thing you see behind it is, and I'll see if I can scroll up for you, this is a Monstera obliqua Amazonas or Amazona, and it's been an interesting plant. So I bought it with a bunch of these leaves at the bottom here, and it was growing up and then started bending down. You can probably see that this vine started coming out and it started bending down, and it shot out a runner straight away. So I think as soon as these vines get horizontal or start dipping, they shoot runners out, as you guys will probably know. So they effectively shoot out what you can see here, where there are no leaves and there are actually just nodes that are blank, sort of leafless nodes that just keep shooting out. It's looking for a plant to climb up. But yeah, I ended up winding it around and it rooted back into here. So you'll see this is the main stem originally, and then this back part here is where it's gone all the way down and then back up. And then more recently, so it sent out some good sized leaves, but because it doesn't have a pole, this bit started dipping down, and that's why the leaves sort of shriveled up or didn't come out properly, and it started firing out a runner. So again, I'm probably just going to let it keep going and then propagate it, and it should be able to just give me a bunch of different plants, hopefully, from those runners. I've seen people propagate the obliquas that way, where they just get it to run by making the stem go horizontal, and then they just take heaps and heaps of propagations from each of those sort of blank nodes, leafless nodes, and chuck them into a prop box, and then, yeah, end up with dozens of plants. So the thing behind this is a Monstera sudamericana. It's a bush. Whoop, camera's freaking out. And it has about 35 cuttings in there. So the story with that one down here is that this originally had these vines sort of probably about half the length, maybe a little, maybe 2/3 the length of what it currently has. And I was just like, this is getting out of control. So I chopped it back to the top and propagated everything down. And all I did was take those propagations and chuck them into a small jar, sort of like what I have in here. I'll lift this up and I'll show you this another time, but just in water like this. And within about a month, they all had rooted. Every single one of the Monstera sudamericana cuttings, and I had 35 of them, all rooted, and I ended up potting up all of them. I think probably 1 or 2 of them have died, but since then, it has just become, and I probably need to water it because it is getting a little light. Let's see if I can, oh my God, talk about jungle. Ugh. It has just become this bush. So you can see all these growth points coming out. And what I really wanted was effectively to replace this basket that only has about 10 vines coming out of it, with this one that has about 30 to really just, yeah, have some epic bush jungle basket in the collection. So, oh man, I have to deal with a lot of these vines. They're getting out of control. The last thing on this shelf is the plant at the back here, and this is a Monstera Adansonii var laniata. So this one is the one that sizes up really big, really quickly. I think this is probably the largest version of Monstera Adansonii that you can get out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But as you can see, these leaves were tiny, 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 and they have already sized up to this. So yeah, again, I need to put this dude on a pole because he's gonna be huge. Okay, now down the bottom, and this is the one that's going to be really fun to kind of film. So we have some devil's ivy here, and I got this because the variegation was just crazy. It had really, really nice variegation, this yellow variegation. I love the aurea variegation on plants. So again, Epipremnum aureum. So I have some Philodendron subhastatum here. These are sort of like the silver sword, I feel, like sort of similar growth pattern. But I'm not sure if they get those nice lobes, the eerie lobes, but they have this really nice blood red bite back to the sides of the leaves, to the abaxial parts of the leaves, which are absolutely stunning. And my plan with these guys was to grow them out on a pole again, get them to flower, and then hopefully cross them with a silver sword and call it the bloody sword. I know it's pretty lame, but I just imagine a silver sword with those blood red backs to the leaves would just be amazing. So that was kind of the plan originally. And so yeah, when I saw these pop up again, they were like $5 each, and they were those kind of, what'd you say, terrarium plants at one of the Bunnings. I just said, yeah, I'll grab two of them. They've got some growth issues here. I'm not sure what's really going on. I think they're probably just in too smaller pots. They need to be potted up, and they probably need more fertilizer. They're probably suffering from cow mag deficiency or something, because you can see the earlier leaves look really nice and the newer ones look like garbage. Sorry again for not being able to get into this one as easily, guys. This is a Ring of Fire. So I grabbed that from Bunnings, saw that a while back, and this had really nice variegation on it. And yeah, it was about $50. In here is a prop box that I have some large Monstera, large form Monstera, and some Philodendron verrucosum wet sticks. So the Monstera are actually like chunks about the size of my wrist. And I just wanted to see if I could wet stick propagate those and how quickly they would propagate. Then down the bottom here, we have some, this is a, oh my God, Paraiso Verde. Jeez, come on camera. Paraiso Verde. This was a really nice one that had really, really pale variegation. I think I've shown you this in videos before. It's kind of like the Ilsamanii. And so I got that, chucked it into semi-hydro. It's taken forever, but it's finally pushing out a leaf. So I think it's finally established itself. I have a Aglaonema pictum tricolor at the back here. This was another Bunnings one. They're kind of pretty average in terms of their camouflage natural variegation here. And this one flowered loads and has since put out multiple pups at the base here. I think they probably do better in a taller vessel, because it seems like the nodes up the base eventually all activate. You can see this one down here is activated. And then I guess we'll zoom out a bit and I'll try and show you what I've got down here. These are some presents that I've organized. My mum wanted to buy some plants from me to give to family members for Christmas. So again, there's just a bunch of aureums in there, a Hartley Philodendron and a Raven ZZ plant. This is a propagation from a Thai constellation that I bought months ago, and you can see that it has finally pushed out a leaf here. The cool thing is that it was fenestrated when it came out, so it was almost had as many of these fenestrations as that primary leaf at the top. I've been battling scale with this thing ever since I got it. If you saw my scale video dealing with scale, every time I find scale on it, I feel like I eradicate everything. I check the whole thing, I use a spray, I use alcohol, I use cotton buds to remove everything, but they seem to always come back. So there must be like tiny, tiny little ones that I always miss, or egg sacs or something, and they're just a massive pain in the ass. So yeah, I feel your pain, guys, if you have to deal with scale on these plants. And geez, it was just one leaf too, this, let alone a huge leaf, you know, but still something relatively easy to deal with. And I wonder if we can find any on here at the moment. Probably not. I think I sort of cleaned it up a month or two ago, so it should be pretty good. Is that one? No. But yeah, anyway, it's been a pain in the butt, but it has done well, and it was just a propagation with some roots, aerial roots that had come out and activated, and yeah, kind of hit the ground running. It was rooting really well, but took quite a while to sort of establish itself, and once it did, pushed out this nice leaf. So yeah, don't be afraid to propagate Monstera ties, although I will add that I have found a lot of them rot randomly. So yeah, just be warned. If you are going to try and propagate these guys, I'd probably make sure that they have some roots that are probably already established if possible, whether you've air layered it or put them into another bucket of soil or back into the soil that you've got with the plant, and you take them out and they're already there. If those roots are already there, you've probably got a better chance that these guys will survive and thrive. We have another dragon scale down here. This is the sort of green, darker green form. I saw this pop up at Bunnings. I think it was about 15 bucks. And the issue was, yeah, as soon as it arrived, the leaves hit the deck. So I think the issue was it was probably being grown in a greenhouse with loads of humidity and it was thriving. And when I got it back to my house, it didn't like the 50 to 60%. And so it took a turn for the worst, but it has held on. Not all the leaves have had a shit time of it. Some of them have done pretty well. I think that's a newer one. This was maybe also a newer one here, but it's just a really cool plant. I really like that one. The plant over the back here, it's sort of hard to see. I would try and get it out, but it's really difficult to kind of get in there. This is probably my favorite or second favorite plant in the collection. It is a Monstera albo deliciosa, right? And it's the small form, but it has really, really compact nodes. I'm going to see if I can get in here and show you. See how close together those nodes are? It almost grows like a large form Monstera, and it's just beautiful. So I've been air layering this. The plan with this one is to chop it up, get a bunch of plants out of this, and then grow it out. The good thing is that, yeah, it's got really good, really high levels of variegation, and it's half mooning at the moment, which is cool. And because it's kind of mottled like that, or it's kind of like Wagyu beef with the fat, you know, how the fat gets interspersed between the meat in those Wagyu beef steaks, the variegation is like that. And so when you can find plants like that, it tends to be much more stable than if you have big blocky green or white variegation on the plant. Ooh, I forgot to mention there's a varicosum propagation here as well that I am growing out. Okay, so I think I'll include this section in the video as well, and then we can kind of move on to the next shelf, and that'll be in the next video following this one. So what else do we have here? We've got two Marble Queen plants growing up this pole. One of the interesting things I've noticed with this is one of them has nearly completely reverted. In fact, I think it has completely reverted. So the most recent leaf and the second one before that had no variegation, and this one only had a tiny amount. It doesn't really bother me. I kind of like the plant, and I like when it has chunks of variegation like that in and out, so it doesn't really bother me too much. This one is looking really good. The variegation is pretty stable by the looks of it, pretty mixed, and I just love this kind of variegation. I think this is my favorite kind of variegation, that creamy, high mix, splotchy, kind of minty variegation on whatever plant it is. I just love it. I think this is why I love the Paraiso Verde, the what am I thinking? The Philodendron Giganteum, the Blizzard, and the, what's the other one? Ilsamanii. Yeah, they're just great. Absolutely great. Just love it. And then we have a Begonia maculata in here that I've been growing just for a bit of fun. This thing is sized up really nicely. I think it's beautiful. It's a cane begonia, pretty cheap and affordable, and just easy going. I haven't had any problems with this thing except for the fact that it drops flowers like crazy. So I tend to remove those now. We have an Alocasia reticulata here that I've had a total nightmare trying to get to grow well. It seems to be doing okay. It's holding onto this leaf, but the base, it had two other leaves on it that died, and then it had this growth point that was coming out, but it has since kind of shriveled up. So I just don't know what the issue is. The soil is never overwatered. I'm really anal about it because I don't want to kill this one. I like this plant quite a lot. And it seems to be pushing out a bunch of corms from higher up above the soil. So I think we're going to have to do a diagnostic troubleshooting video on this one sometime soon and work out what the hell is going on with it. We have a Philodendron, I think that is an Ernestii in there. So I'm growing that one out just again to propagate and hopefully get multiple plants to grow up a pole. It's similar to the tenue or tenue in that the leaves have that veitchii kind of feel to them where they're just stunning. They have these nice, I'll see if I can get in there and show you. Might be easier on this one. These nice veins that come down the leaf that are kind of like the ribs, but they sort of go diagonally down the leaf a little more. We have over here an Albo Florida Beauty. So I've got two of these in the collection, and as you can probably see from the leaf in the background there, that half moon one, it's bright white, it's not yellow. So these are actually really expensive still and desirable, and I managed to find two of these for 450 bucks each. Got them for 900 bucks and had been seeing them, smaller ones than what I bought these at, going for about $1,000. So that's why I invested in those. Over the back here is probably one of my ugliest plants. This is an aurea, and these shit me to tears. Pretty much as soon as the Monstera deliciosa aurea, this is a small form, yellow, they brown. So as soon as the leaf hardens off, and I'll see if I can get in there and show you, the most recent leaf is beautiful, as you can probably see, hopefully. Oh, why wouldn't you move, camera? Move. So it's sort of hard to see, but that one's a half moon. It is really nice when you get it out. But pretty much as soon as it hardens off to yellow, it does that. And I don't know, it's been one of the hardest plants for me to try and work out. Monsteras usually can handle underwatering, but I don't know if this is an issue with underwatering where it's just drying out too much and it just hates it. Or maybe the humidity's too low. I don't know, but it's a problem child. And then we have three more plants. So we have these two large Thai constellations. These are probably my largest ones. There is a low variegation one here that I got this one at Bunnings, and I got both of these at Bunnings. They were 295 bucks when I got them, and they probably had 3 leaves less when I got them. So this was probably the biggest leaf on this plant, and it's since pushed out 1, 2, 3. This was a really high variegation one that I got through Bunnings. I think the most recent leaf when I got it was this one. So this is, yeah, really nice variegation on this one. And it is just growing like wildfire. So it's pushing out this leaf now. It's got some really big ones behind here. And again, I think I'm probably gonna try and sell these. I'm not sure. I could either do that or keep one of them and try and grow it out really big. And I'm not sure which to keep. The low variegation ones tend to be cheaper because they're less desirable, but I kind of find them interesting, and I kind of like the variegation, the contrast too. So I don't really have a big problem with the look of them. So I may end up keeping the low variegation one and trying to sell the high variegation one to just recoup a bit of money. I have some propagations in here. I can't even remember what they are. I think they're just different Philodendron, Monstera, and some Peperomia in there. I lied, there are actually 4 plants here. This is another Thai constellation tip cutting that I've got propagating in moss at the back here, so just waiting for that to root again to sell. And this thing here is 2 nodes, a 2-node cutting of a sort of huge version of this Albo back here. So I got that a while back. I think it was about 250 bucks a node. And yeah, it was ugly, but promising. And one of the nodes on there has already exploded. So I think it's gonna take off and give me some really large fenestrated leaves quickly compared to the smaller plants that I have. All right, so that is part 1, shelf number 1. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to check out this video next, and I will include part 2 here when it is released, probably tomorrow. So anyway, see you then.